Hey there again, folks. Welcome back to Remember 11, the Age of Infinity. Last time we had quite an altercation with Itsumi and Hattori. Luckily, Uni stepped in to help intervene there, so things are smoothed out better. Let's see how things go with the people at the shelter cabin, because it's getting pretty close to the end now. Oops. That's right, that's it. There are more than these 5 people at Sophia. Big Kokoro, she too can be considered one of the people at Sophia. There are limits to the time she can spend here, but it's undeniable that her consciousness took control of my body. We killed Inamoto no Yoya, Kokoro, who destroyed the living area. Kokoro again, who drank the DMT and the Mao inhibitor. According to Hattori, Kokoro, who received the sleeping pills called Zigtamin from Itsumi. Kokoro, of course. And who wounded my left arm? I don't know. Hattori proposed self-mutilation as a cause, but finally who pushed me off the clock tower? It's not Kokoro. Did she jump off herself? No, that's impossible. Because the transference phenomenon hadn't even happened yet. Besides, I saw a shadow up on the clock tower. He did, didn't he? And that same shadow stabbed me in the arm too. Saw someone clutching a knife in the dark. I writhed and tore at my hair. Some kind of clue. I sat still for a while, surveying the ruined living area. I wonder how loud he actually shouted that. It'd be funny if in one of their rooms they're like, yeah, Satoru's losing it again. I hear him screaming. Sofa had been ripped to shreds, its stuffing exposed like entrails. The table had been flipped over, the chairs broken, and the computer monitor knocked to the floor. The glass divider between the living area and the dining area had been shattered into tiny pieces. In an instant, a spark ignited in my head. A spark. I ran past the living area and jumped into the dining area. Without hesitation, I rushed down the stairs, nearly falling over several times. Basement storeroom. There's a south-facing door in the wall down there. The door leading to that small, dimly lit room where Inamoto lived. The door was still open, and into the small room enclosed by darkness. Stepped forward as though something was leading me there. Oh, is he going to try to look and see see about the clock tower, about the stabbing in the arm? Is that the plan? Consciousness, okay. The row monitors radiated a pale light. Sank into the armchair before the panel and crossed my legs atop the cross-up. Crossa? What? There was an image paused on the computer's display. The final shot of my body's rampage to the living area on the night of the 15th. The other monitor displayed the current going zone in each of the other rooms. The other 3 were all in their bedrooms. Itsumi was sitting on a chair, gazing at the photos of her babies. Uni was asleep in his bed. Tori was crouching in the corner of her room, silently gazing at the floor. All the 3 of them seemed perfectly fine. I turned my gaze to the display before me. Nose itches. Back to the paused footage, I closed the playback screen and opened the pull-down menu. A list of the files stored in the database appeared. Among them were the records of every single event that had occurred in Sophia from January 11th to January 16th, 2012. That's right, I was here for one reason and one reason only. To check the video data. Just what had happened at Sophia while my consciousness was away from my body. If I looked through all the footage, then I discovered the answer right away. That's what I thought. I began to pour over the vast amount of data. Although with that said, I'd never catch up if I played it back in real time. Yeah. The total length of the footage I had to watch was approximately 100 hours. Wait, no, 100 hours and 1 second. 100 hours, 2 seconds. Okay, what sort of a tip is this going to give us? That 100 hours is like 4 days and 4 hours. The portion analyzed is the recording beginning at the moment of my fall from the clock tower on the 11th past 4 p.m. and ending at the moment of the final transfer on the 15th, 10:53 p.m. The exact aggregate duration turns out to be a little less than 103 hours. Even if I examine further, any other data has been deemed insignificant and omitted. Okay. Well, 11 going to 103. Couldn't help but fast forward through everything that didn't interest me. And eventually my analysis caught up to where I was right now. 10 hours had passed since I'd settled into this chair. Oh wow. Well, that's a way to fast forward through 12 hours. I had a throbbing ache just behind my eyes from staring at the low resolution footage for so long. Let out a big sigh and rubbed the inner corners of my eyes with my fingers. Present time 2:37 a.m. The date had changed to January 17th. What was Kokoro's consciousness doing while in my body? How did the other three act while I wasn't there? It'd be fine if I clarified these mysteries to some extent. There were still many things I didn't know. Over 2 hours remained until the next transfer. I extracted the most important scenes and replayed the footage once again. Wednesday, January 11th. Time 4:15 a.m. Location, my room. Simi entered, pulling my snow-covered body inside. She removed my coat, which was soaked through and clinging to me. The bath towel she'd brought from somewhere, she kindly wiped down my hair and face. What were those tips? Do you know what time and location means? Are they going to clarify, give more information about the time and the location? The date and time were indicated by a timestamp in the corner of the videos. Okay. Cameras are set up everywhere in Sphia, so there are as many recorded data files as there are cameras. However, there was neither any need to check all of them nor the time to do so. Basically, I just included all the files that I don't appear in front of the... I just included... Okay, that I don't... Yeah, that's right. In the list of objects to be analyzed. Okay. It's kind of creepy. Yeah, it's pretty creepy that Inamoto had access to all these cameras. I'd rather not think about it too much. She then dragged my body, still unconscious, to the bed and laid it down. She took my pulse, checked my pupils, and placed her palm against my brow to check for fever. She covered me with a blanket, then Itsumi left the room. For a while after that, my body continued sleeping without the slightest tremor. Time 8:02 p.m. Location, my room. The room's window began to shake violently as though hit by a sudden squall. The tremors began to settle, and at the same time the body lying on the bed got up. His face was warped in agony. Itsumi appeared in the room again and gently coaxed the body back into the bed. The two of them were having a conversation about something. The recording had no sound, thus I didn't know what they were talking about. It went without saying that the only other person there besides Itsumi was me. The body looked like me, but I don't remember talking to Itsumi like this, which meant that Kokoro's consciousness had entered my body. This was how the first transfer occurred. The time was 8:02 p.m. Sphia had jumped to the Mount Akigura of January 11, 2011. Sorry, I just got done eating a little bit, so hopefully that's not going to screw up my commentary too terribly badly. Just make it a little bit hard to talk. I try not to do it, but I ate kind of late today and was wanting to record some today. So. In exchange, a circle with a radius of 110 meters with the shelter cabin in its core, arrived at the Aosagi Island of 2012. At that moment, my consciousness, which remained at Aosagi Island, had entered Kokoro's body. Therefore, this footage shows Fia after it jumped to the Mount Akakura of 2011. That was probably why the window shook just before the transfer. Atmospheric pressure inside Sofia was high, while Mount Akakura's was much lower, so the window was hit by the air pressure on both sides. Eventually, the air managed to escape from the institution through a crack somewhere, and the interior equalized with the exterior pressure. By the way, there was one thing that bothered me. And if my current reasoning regarding the atmospheric pressure was correct, then how could I have overlooked something like that, something that big before? Even if my consciousness was always at Aosagi Island, when I transferred into Kokoro's body or returned to my own, I should have noticed pain in my ears, or heard the sound of the draft caused by the escaping air. I was supposed to say, stuff about air pressure supposed to make your ears pop, right? They say that if you're on a plane and that your ears don't pop, or when you land and your ears don't pop back or something, that you should try to pop them yourself. Something like that. Seems like I've heard something like that. I don't remember feeling something that out of place even once. What was that? Was it because I never paid any attention to such a trivial change in the chaos that followed the transfer? Something was strange. I suddenly felt a sense of discontent. All kinds of thoughts whirled through my head. Like that, I disinterestedly kept viewing the footage. My body, Kokoro, left the room, met Hattori in the dining area, and then discovered Uni in a supposedly empty room. My body received a mirror from Uni. It looked into the mirror and then began muttering something. It opened its mouth wide while tossing its head wildly as if screaming. My body began to get angry, building into a rage. Isumi appeared in the room with the sedative, which she injected into me. My body crumpled on the spot, an immobile container made out of flesh. Uni and Isumi carried it to my room. Time 9:08 p.m. Location my room. My body began to stir as it lay on the bed. He got to his feet and stood in the middle of the room looking around. Began to grope at his body. An expression of relief crossed his face. That's me! I got little Satoru back! The image shown there was of me in both body and consciousness. The second transfer, the time was 9:08 p.m. What was about to happen after this had already been carved into my memory. Conversation with Uni, Hattori running down to the basement store, and me running after her. Everything was recorded there just as I remembered it. There's no need to confirm what I already know. I fast forwarded through the footage and went on to the next scene. Time 10:24 p.m. Location dining area. The 3 cups slipped out of my fingers. They shattered. The sound must have surprised it as my body twitched. It gazed obliviously at the fragments strewn across the floor. Sumi came up behind me. I turned around. No, that wasn't me. It was Furukawa Kokoro in my form. I have no memory of this encounter, so it had to be her. 10:24 p.m. The third transfer occurred. Afterward, my body, Kokoro. There's a movie called My Buddy Totoro. I keep thinking. I think it's called My Buddy Totoro, something like that. No, My Neighbor Totoro. Yeah. Anyway, for whatever reason, that name keeps popping into my brain. Well, not fully, because obviously I couldn't remember it, but exactly. Afterward, my body, Kokoro, exchanged a few words with Itsumi and Uni before heading to its own bathroom. There weren't any cameras in there. It was a bathroom after all. Okay. Inamoto did have some sense of decency. I don't know what happened inside. There weren't any especially important scenes around here, so I jumped ahead. Didn't have the time to inspect everything. However, I couldn't overlook the scene that happened next. Time 10:45 p.m. Location Hattori's room. My body received the pills from Itsumi. Otori was on the bed, looking tired. Uni suddenly appeared before the camera. After exchanging a few words, my buddy held Uni close, then left the room with him. Time, 10:48 p.m. Location, my room. My buddy took the pills and went into the bathroom. Finally, I was entranced by the display, completely absorbed. Within the footage on screen, I disappeared from view. Afterward, there was just the empty room. Time, 11:19 p.m. My room. Someone's back appeared at the edge of the frame. It was Satoru. She came into the room and suddenly began to act very odd. She ran, but fell down after only 2 or 3 steps, and once she'd righted herself, she took only a few more before falling over backward. After repeating this several times, she planted herself on the floor. Her eyes were trained on the refrigerator. She suddenly clapped her hands together and laughed. Then she stood up, peeled the blanket off the bed, and started swinging it around wildly. But her foot got caught and she fell down again. The momentum caused the blanket to carry her to the floor with it, where it fell and covered her face. After struggling underneath it for a bit, she threw it off to the side. She finally turned toward the camera. She was wearing a vacant expression. Her eyes darted around the room. Then she opened her mouth as wide as it would go while curling her hands into fists. Just like that, she went limp and fell onto the bed. This was the second time I'd seen this footage, and it still left me speechless. What exactly was she trying to do? She's acting very childlike, that's for sure. She's definitely got something to do with children. It definitely got to have something to do with that. I just don't know how exactly. Her strange movements continued for another 11 minutes. Of course, 11:30, my room. Suddenly, Hattori's back arched. She collapsed to the floor and her whole body went rigid. For several seconds, she lay there completely still, her back still curved. And just as quickly, she suddenly sat bolt upright. Clambering across the room, she began crawling, hitting it for a corner. She pressed her back flat against the wall, arms outstretched, and crouched and then wrapped them around her knees. She looked around the room with a frightened expression on her face. I could see her fingers trembling. Deep wrinkles etched themselves into her brow, and her eyes restlessly scanned the room. 3 minutes later, Hattori timidly stood up and rushed for the door. She fled the room, and for a while after that, all the camera recorded was an empty room. 11:37, my room. Eventually, my body came out through the bathroom door, walking unsteadily. My entire body was dripping wet. Feeling along the wall to support itself, it shambled forward, leaving puddles of water behind with every footstep. I remember taking those unsteady steps. After taking the Zegtamin, my control over my own body weakened. This meant that, at this moment, the display was showing the real me. The timing of the transfer was most likely the same as Hattori's. So 11:30. This was before transfer. 2 round trips had occurred. Okay, if he's noticing that, he should be looking to see if Hattori is acting strange or different every time he transfers. You would think you would do that. The me in the recording was exhausted, and with the last of my strength, I somehow made it to the bed. Passed out, my eyes snapped shut. After that, I slept until 6:30 the next morning. That ended the video data for the 11. There were a number of things that had interested me, but for now, let them be. I could organize my thoughts on that later. I continued with the files from the 12th. Oh, we're really analyzing this. It's fine with me. The most important event occurring on this day was, of course, my arm being stabbed. I concentrated, narrowing my focus, and pressed fast forward. 5:30, my room. The camera had captured Utsumi's image. The window trembled in the strong wind. Utsumi was holding onto my arm. I began conversing with my body. My knees fell over Utsumi's face, and then at that moment, white noise and static began to fill the screen, and the footage of the room began to waver. they really doing this at this point? The wavering increased further until I could no longer make out anything on the screen. How inconvenient! Dang! The image warped. The picture blurred. I rewound and played the scene back in slow motion and saw my body and Itsumi holding each other, crouched on the floor. An earthquake. Now that I thought about it, Kokoro had written a message like that to me. An earthquake occurred at Sophia. Because of that, the breaker was tripped and a blackout occurred. Oh yeah! It's fixed now. Just like in her message, the screen suddenly went pitch black. It wasn't just the lights either. A complete blackout. The file itself was empty with nothing recorded in it. The cameras had probably stopped working because of the power failure. A sequence of utter darkness that could hardly be called footage continued on for several minutes. Eventually the grainy particles on screen began to fire across the display, and as it washed down, the image on the screen became completely clear. Yeah, I can't talk today at all. The post-blackout Sophia appeared on screen. Time, 7:10 p.m. My room. The lights returned and my body squinted. Blood was gushing from his left arm. Itsumi was there as well. She took one look at my bleeding arm and fell into obvious dismay. This might go without saying, but the me there at that moment wasn't me. The one moving my body was Fukawa Kokoro's consciousness even during the earthquake. Although with that said, it was as if the images from before and those appearing right now were continuous. I'd seen a shadowy figure in the darkness of the blackout, a knife grasped in its right hand. Going with this between 5:30 and 7:10, Kokoro and I had switched places with each other twice. One round trip. That reminds me, at what time was my left arm injured anyway? The time my consciousness returned to Sophia, my arm already bore a deep wound. In other words, the one in control of my body when I was stabbed wasn't me, but Kokoro. Keeping this in mind, it would mean that the attack took place after the power failure but before the next transfer occurred. However, the blackout had prevented that crucial scene from being recorded. Of course. But the same, no matter how many times I tried playing it back, nothing new jumped out at me from the recording. Gave up close the files for the 12th. Next episode we will go over the stuff from the 13th. Friday the 13th. I'm assuming we'll get to see a guy with a hockey mask and a machete. Always blame Jason. Yep, that's the key. Alright. Do sincerely hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one. Farewell.